following your lead.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the house that Ross built. And today we have a special guest, and you've seen him on another one of our episodes on another podcast we were doing. And that is Mr. Jason Fenwick. And you probably recognize the last name Fenwick because his brother comes on a regular basis, too, who is J.R. Fenwick. And they're both successful. Somebody named J.R. I don't know if you know him for sure, but
I don't know that guy. I don't know
looks
that
a little
guy.
bit like you, too. I think we can all we have some distant relatives that some ancestry because we all kind of look similar. People always ask, "Is that your brother?" I was like, "Nah." So we just got a little similar face. Our bald heads.
It's a bald head. It's a bald head part right there. There you go.
So we'll go and get started. First, I'm gonna give Jason an opportunity to give a little bit of his bio and his background, and then we'll go and get into what we're going to talk about today.
Sure. My name's Jason Fenwick. I am the Managing Director at Windsor, Wyeth Ward. We are a full-service business advisory firm, and so we do pretty much anything to do with business. One of my specialties is starting businesses. I'm a professor at law school, teaching that course. I've been doing this since the 1990s. We look at things from a multidisciplinary standpoint. We're all cross-trained. So myself, started my career as a financial analyst, but I'm a financial analyst, risk analyst, sales analyst, market analyst, operational analyst, real estate analyst, lawyer, and probably a couple other things that I forgot about. But what that allows me to do, and what it allows the firm to do, is it allows us to look at whatever your issue or problem is from all the different aspects. So you may come and say, "Hey, I got a sales problem." We look at it, or you say, "I have a finance problem." We say, "Oh, you don't have a finance problem. You have a sales cycle problem." Or if I was only a lawyer, I could look at it from a law background or law perspective. If I was only a finance guy, I could only look at it from that standpoint. But because we kind of cover all the different disciplines, it helps us to solve your problem efficiently. Trying to think what else. We have a nationwide practice. If you need to get in touch with me, you can get me at jfenwick@windsorwyeth.com or at 202-239-2368.
And we'll have that information on the actual notes on the bottom of the podcast as well. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you, they'll be able to do that if they don't, they can't write it if they're listening. So I'm going to go into a little background about me and Jason. So I met Jason through some other business associates that I was doing business with. And I was introduced to him, and we kind of hit it off right from the get-go. Jason always would help me with some things that they were doing. First of all, he put a contract together for me for this business that I was investing in. After that, me and him developed a personal relationship, and then we did other stuff in business. He also, at one point, when I brought him on to help me build another business that I was having, he basically walked me through step by step on how to develop the business, start the business, raise money for the business. He even actually went out with me, and we walked where we were at the malls, houses. We were doing all kind of stuff, just talking to people.
We walked where your target customer base was. We went out and did actual sales calls with your target customer base. I don't know how I did that. I must have really liked you. I forgot when you told me that story the last time. I was like, I forgot all about that.
And look, he didn't even charge me extra for it, so he must like me. Like I said,
you know what it is I can tell you, if I have a genuine interest in people doing well in business. It isn't just a casual interest because I'm a businessman, because I've been on the other side. I own businesses. I hated when an advisor would give me advice and then they'd go home and get a salary. Well, because I've made more money investing and owning businesses than I ever made working, I know what it's like to be you. I know what it's like to build a business. And I'm genuinely invested in seeing that person succeed beyond whatever I get retained or I get paid. Because if you do well, it'll end up, you'll start investing, you'll start more businesses, it'll help your family. I'm a big proponent of not only is family the cornerstone of our community, but business is the cornerstone of our community. And we need more good business people out there.
Absolutely. And that's why he's a good fit for our program. That's what we do. We want to educate our community mostly about business investing, so on and so forth, because there's a lack in our community, even in 2024. There's still a lack of African-American business owners, and even less that invest in anything. So, our platform here, because again, I'm the same way. I feel, a passion for helping others succeed, business, investing, so on and so forth. So we offer this platform for people to come on to learn about business. We have people like Jason, JR, some of our other guests that are professionals, and they're doing this for free. He doesn't charge me for coming on here.
Wait a minute, what?
No, there's no fee.
Oh, I'm not getting paid for this?
Oh, only now if somebody reaches out to you, that's a whole different thing. You could.
Wait a minute, look at that. See, I'm gone. Like, what are you talking about?
You left. But so that's
Got to negotiate my fee? Okay, we'll talk about that offline.
Yeah. So a person with that many credentials, that I probably wouldn't be able to afford you anyway. So you'd have to put it on my tab,
You
bro.
said the same thing the last time you hired me.
There you go. Like I said, you have to put it on my tab. Just keep it running. I'll make it there one day, and then I'll be able to pay you.
One day you're going to be big. That's what I'm counting on.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to get right into it. Today we're going to talk about how to start a business, how to raise funding for your business. And this will be our basically kickoff episode with Jason. He's going to be a regular guest, talking to people how to build a business, establish business. And then also, again, there's resources that you can reach out to him and he can help you privately as well. So let's get into it. First tips for starting a business?
First thing is you got to understand that starting a business, everyone thinks business and sex. Everyone thinks they're naturally good at it. They just think, of course, I'm just naturally good. That's not the case. It's something you got to study. So there's a format for business, and most people don't understand that businesses go through several phases. So if you look behind me over here, you see my poster from when I did a seminar, the 5 phases of a startup business. Businesses go through different phases, and there are different things with the phases. So the first phase is your strategic planning phase. The next phase is funding. The next phase after that is rollout, initial rollout or beta testing, then becoming operational, and then exit strategies. Most people want to skip the strategic planning phase and go straight to funding. The problem with doing that is all the questions that you're going to get asked in the funding stage are developed in the strategic planning stage. And the first part of that is the concept development phase, which during that phase of concept development is where you do your initial concept review and you answer all of the questions associated with whatever the product or service that you're going to be offering. And so those are simply, I boil it down to the 5 W's and 2 H's. Who, what, when, where, why, how much, or how and how much. Who are we selling to? Like, who specifically are we selling to? Who's our target market? Who's going to do the manufacturing? Who's going to do the distributing? Who's our target investor? Who are our alliance partners? What are we selling? It's easy to say, we're selling, I always use the example in live seminars of water. I take a bottle of water, I take like 5 bottles of water, and I say, what are we selling? And they're different brands. And the one bottle, I wish I had a bottle with me, but the one bottle, is just regular water from Walmart, where you get like 36 for $2. I said, what are we selling? Because water used to be free. Are we selling water? And everyone's like, yeah, we're selling water. I'm like, we're not selling water. Water's a nickel. You don't need to spend a quarter per bottle for water. What we're selling is convenience. What we're selling is portability. That's what you're selling when you buy a bottle of water for the cheap stuff. You're getting convenience and portability. That's what you can't get from just taking it out of the faucet, putting it in a glass. But then as you move up and you get to like the alkaline water, the smart water, things like that, I say, what are we selling? And they're like, water? I'm like, yeah, the water's still a nickel. The reason that this costs $1.50 or $2 per thing is because we're selling the illusion of health. We're selling alkalinity. We're selling that the water is going to make you healthier and make you smarter, make your body function better. Then when we get up to like Voss, which is the glass bottle, the big glass ones, what are we selling? And they're like, water? I'm like, no, water's still a nickel. This one's $8 at the club or $12 at the club. We're selling status. You're walking around with a nice glass bottle and it has clear water, but it's the glass bottle, it's the status. So you have to understand what exactly you're selling, because oftentimes there's the actual product and then there's the benefit of the product. So people always say, my brother uses Android phones and he calls me backwards for using an iPhone. Well, I didn't buy, he says their iPhone is better. And early on, I said, oh, you're right. It does look like your phone is better. Your Android phone is better. I didn't buy this for the phone. I bought it for the platform. That all of my Apple products, are on the same platform, and all of my children and family are on the same platform. So therefore, we can all communicate, whether it's visually or FaceTime, saving the documents, things like that, all very easy, which I'm sure Android is caught up to Apple with, but this is 12 years ago or 14, 15 years ago, at the very beginning, they had the best platform. And so that's what I was buying. So you have to understand what exactly you're selling with the what, who, what, when are we selling it? Most people don't realize that everything has a sales cycle. Everything has to fit into a season. So right now it's June. If you had a product that you wanted to introduce for the Christmas season, that season's gone. It may not be gone to us, the customer, but as far as the retailer goes, Walmart, Costco, they bought all their stuff for Christmas back in February and March. They put those orders in back then. So you coming in June, it's going to be difficult for you to break in. So when are we selling it? Is there a seasonality for what you're selling? So we got who, what, when, where are we selling it? Are we selling it on a retail? I'm looking behind you at your backdrop. You have a book, The House That Ross Built. Are we selling it in a retail store? Are we selling it online on a website? Are we selling it through Amazon? Are we selling it in person? All of those things have different requirements, different paperwork. And so knowing in different regulations and different shipping standards. So knowing where we're selling something is also important. So we got who, what, when, where, why. Why is the customer going to buy our stuff? There's already 5 million books out there. What makes your book special? What makes yours, what distinguishes it? What distinguishes your product from the competition that's currently out there? What problem or solution are you solving? Why are they going to overlook the products that the competition and the products that are already servicing that market to go buy yours? And so we got who, what, when, where, why. Now we got how. How are we going to manufacture it? How are we going to ship it? Those, and then how much? How much does it cost? How much is our break-even point? How much is our pricing on it? How much are they going to charge for manufacturing, and how much are they going to charge for shipping it? So those are the 5 basic questions. What you would find, what I generally find, having been doing this for almost 30 years, is the average person misses 5 of the 7, 4 to 5 of the 7. And they're such in a rush to get their product out there or their idea out there that they're only talking to people who are yes people. Like, oh, that sounds good. Oh, yeah, that'll work. Oh, definitely. And then when they get someone like me who's a professional and I start asking these questions, they're like, well, you don't like my idea. No, I didn't say that. I'm just asking you basic questions so that I can move your idea along. If you go to Walmart, they're going to ask you, I'm giving you the questions before you get to Walmart, if that's where you want to sell it, that you need to answer. Before you get to Costco, before you get to Amazon, they're going to ask you a lot of questions in order to sell your product. And so most people skip this basic fundamental part in terms of concept development. Also during this phase, you're looking at the feasibility of your idea. Just does it make sense? Does the market have room for it? It may be a great idea, but it's a great idea that costs 8 times the amount of what the competition what the competition sells there for, what the consumer is willing to pay for it. That could be, there are a lot of great ideas, but the fact that you can't do it for in a timely manner, or you can't do it for a certain price point, makes the idea not as good an idea, not as feasible an idea. So you want to look at the feasibility of it. Some ideas are good, they just may not be good for you. And so what do I mean by that? There's objective and there's subjective. Someone came to me once and there was this franchise, it was a noodle store. And I forgot what the name of it was. But you know, chicken and noodles, Chinese noodles, that type thing. Great idea. I said, this is a good idea objectively. Do you know anything about restauranting? No. Are you planning to quit your job or quit your current business to run this restaurant? No. Are you planning to hire a manager to run the restaurant? No. Okay, it's not a good idea. It's not a feasible idea for you because you don't know anything about restaurants, but you're not going to bring in a partner who does that. And so some of it's objective. Objective, is this a good idea? Yes. Subjective, is it a good idea for you to do it? No. I get hit with the same thing. I see great ideas. I come up with great ideas. Objectively, great ideas. Subjectively, for what I'm already into, the time I have, the investment, the amount of investment, not as good not as feasible. And so that's a part of the analysis you have to go through in the concept development stage. Target market, you mentioned us going out and walking. I forget where we walk, in the malls, the different places.
Town center was one of the
There we
things.
go. On the malls and town center. The reason we did that is because we had talked about who's your target market? Who is your actual customer you're trying to court? And you told me who it was, and I said, well, how are you going to get that person, that target market's attention? How are you going to get the orders? What are we going to do? And we had talked about it, and I said, well, let's just go out and let's do it so that you can see how difficult or easy it is to get customers. Because as long as you're talking about it or thinking about it in your head, it's real easy. Everything's easy. As Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan before they get in the ring. When you're watching football at home on Sunday on TV, it looks real easy. It isn't as easy when you're on the field, so getting you out there made you aware of how difficult or easy it was to sell to that particular market, and also tells you what you need to do. And so most people don't have a very specific target market. What I mean by that is when any major company introduces a product, Mercedes-Benz, Coca-Cola, whoever, the Gap, they say, hey, this product right here is for young women, college educated, 24 to 28 years old, in their first job, who come from a suburban background, make approximately $56,000 to $73,000 a year, not married, no kids. They're that specific. Like, they drill all the way down. You should be able to be that specific, especially in light of just the availability of information today. You can get that specific in your target. So knowing who it is and having a very specific target market and knowing exactly why your target market purchases this particular product or service in general, and then why they would be drawn to your particular product specifically. So that goes back to the target market review, which is part of concept development. And then lastly, for concept development, you want to understand what the structure of your offering is. And so most people, let's say that I come up and I'm going to bottle my grandmother's lemonade, which was excellent, by the way, her homemade lemonade. And I'm like, this is everywhere I ever bring this. Everyone loves it. I bring it to family reunions. They love it. I bring it to Ross's house because we're going to watch football game. He loves it. Everyone at the party loves it. So I'm going to sell it. But I got to figure out how to structure it. And the reason I say, how are we going to structure it, is because the very first question that Walmart's going to ask me before they distribute it is, first off, what are your case orders? You know what a case order is, Ross?
Kind of, sort of. I'd rather you explain it to me.
There you go. The reason I did that is I figured you're going to say kind of sort of, but what I want everyone to understand is Ross is an experienced and seasoned businessman, just not in this area. See that? He's an experienced, seasoned businessman whom I would go to for advice every day and twice on Sunday. In general, especially in real estate, things of that nature. This is a different area. It's a different area. And so what that means is Walmart, before they may taste my grandmother's lemonade, said, this is the best thing ever. We're going to sell a ton of this. Hey, what's your case order? My case order is, first off, how many units come in my case? So, and the second part of that question is, what am I selling? So if you think about Coca-Cola, they have 12-ounce cans. They have 16-ounce bottles, glass bottles, 16-ounce plastic bottles, 1-liter bottles, 2-liter bottles, 10-ounce cans. What am I selling? So what they're asking is, what's the size of the container? Because they got to be able to fit it on their shelves. And what's the case order? So I have 12-ounce cans, and the 12-ounce cans of lemonade, like Coca-Cola, come in a 24 pack or a 6-pack. And in a case, there are 48 packs in a case. That would be a case order. Most people don't understand that. Most people don't know that. And so even if they're seasoned in business, they may not understand it in this new venture. And so you have to structure the concept so that people understand, hey, you know, how am I going to sell this? How am I going to produce this? What is my order? If I'm ordering it from overseas or I'm ordering it from a manufacturer, what is the minimum order? How are we structuring the deal? So, any questions about any of that, sir, that I've gone over? I should have let you talk a little bit more.
No, that's why
I
we
took
brought you
over
on.
your whole show, man.
Oh, I'm gonna shut up and let you talk, bro. That's what we're here for. We're trying to educate the people. And like you said, I'm in a certain business and I can give you expertise on that certain thing, but other things I cannot. You know, like a case, I'm not in the product business, so I don't really know what a case order is all that much. So those are the things that we brought you on here to talk about. So we have all of the basically startup strategies or the steps to getting started. And what we're gonna do, just based on what you were saying, we're gonna touch each time you come on, we're gonna touch on one and kind of explain that in more depth.
Okay.
So there's no questions at this point, but I just like I said, a general 1,000-foot view so our listeners can understand where you're coming from and the general basics. And some of them, you know how people are, they say they want to do something, they say they want to start a business, so on and so forth. And when it comes down to it, they're going to miss those steps because, like you said, they just want to go out and run. And then at the end of the day, they find out they lost a bunch of money and they could have saved money, or they actually could have saved their time and not started the business.
Correct. Well, the other part is people, they skip things. People want a tangible outcome and they'll be like, why? I started my LLC. Like, great. What's it going to do? There's no business. You just spent money. I bought a prototype. You bought a prototype and you haven't answered the basic questions of how you're going to sell it, where you're going to sell it, and what sizes. And, you know, they're just different. I see them wasting money. They buy equipment and then they find out they don't need that equipment, or the prototype they bought isn't going to help them do what they want to do. Oftentimes walking through the basics, or they just don't want to think about it. One of my favorites was, you know, I have a bunch of stories I could tell, but this one is one of my favorites. Someone walked in my office. They called me in and they said, hey, this idea is going to make billions. This was back when $1 billion was a lot of money. And I was like, okay, what's that? And they're like, toothpaste. I'm like, okay, toothpaste. What about it for Black people? And I just looked at them like, what? And they're like, toothpaste for Black people. I'm like
our teeth are different.
Pardon me?
I said, like, our teeth are different from other people's teeth.
That was my question. I'm like, well, how's your toothpaste special? Like, what is it about our teeth that is different? And they're like, nothing's different. It's just that it's for Black people. If we can get all the Black people to buy just one toothpaste, that's $1 billion market. I said, you're right. I said, there's one problem with that. No one's been able to get Black people, all the Black people, to do anything. Like, in fact, if you go into our community and you were selling Jesus, there are like 18 different denominations in just our community for Jesus, and that's the Lord Savior. So I'm not sure what's your plan, your marketing plan to get all Black people to buy toothpaste. And they looked at me and said, that's why we're bringing you in and paying you the big bucks. And then they told me they didn't want to pay me. They wanted to give me a percentage of the action. I was like, oh,
no.
I was like, well, I don't mind taking a percentage, but I kind of need to know the idea. And so they answered the who, but they missed the what, when, where, how, and how much, and all the other things. And so what I really want people to understand is during this phase of concept development, which there are multiple phases, we still haven't talked about concept monetization. We haven't talked about company startup, getting the company organization and capitalization rollout. So there's still some more phases. This is just the first phase. During this, because people don't put a lot of emphasis in this phase, they lose a lot of money. And what I want people to understand is the more attention that you give to this phase, it's free. It really is free or close to free because you're not spending money on prototypes or on different things until you've answered all the questions that are out there. And so having a professional view, of whatever it is you're trying to do will help you to get where you want to go faster.
Absolutely. And every guest that we bring on, no matter what business they're in, and it's always the same problem. People, oh, I can figure it out on my own. I can do this. I can do that. And they don't want to spend the money for somebody to help them develop whatever they're trying to develop or invest or whatever the case may be. But then they go in and do it themselves and they fail. And then they're upset with the economy. They're upset with other people, blah, so on and so forth. And they wasted a bunch of time. You have to, our community doesn't understand, you have to pay for professional services.
Let me give a couple stories, if you don't mind, if we have some time that'll illuminate this. My phone rings at 11:38 at night. Now, I'm not the millennial that you are, Ross. So when my phone rings at 11:48 or 38 at night, that means somebody's dead or in the hospital.
Problem, so, right.
It was years ago. There's a problem, major problem. So it's a neighbor. I'm like, hey, everything okay with your wife? Yeah. Everything okay with the kids? Yeah. But my wife wanted me to call you. Okay, it's 11:38. What's up? You got a fire? What's going on? No, he's all excited. He goes, well, I told her my business idea, and I told her that I had signed a lease today for $38,000 per month. That's my dramatic pause, just to let that number sink in. $38,000 per month on this business idea. And she kind of said, did you run that by Jason? And so he tells me this idea, which is fraught with issues. The problem, not saying that it couldn't have been worked out over time, and my time estimate on working it out was somewhere between 6 and 9 months. The problem is the lease started in 2 weeks, and you're a real estate guy. 38,000 times 6-7 months of planning is a couple hundred, $250,000 that's just gone because you signed a lease and there's nothing I can do to accelerate this particular idea to get it to the point that you could open your retail outlet in order to sell it. No one could. So that was money gone. I had another friend who calls me. They're about to lose, I believe the number was $430,000. And he tells me idea. I immediately see what the issue is, like within the first 10 minutes. And I say, hey, man, why didn't you call me? He said, oh, man, I thought it was going to cost a lot of money. He goes, how much would it have cost for you? It cost me. I said, it wouldn't have cost you $430,000. It would have cost a lot of. So 1 year I just kept a little scratch pad like this on my desk for my initial consultations, which our initial consultations are $450 for 90 minutes. And if it within the first 10 minutes, if I could see a major problem that would prevent it, I wrote down what they had lost, because they generally come in after the fact wanting me to fix something in our community. In other communities, they come in before the fact when they have the idea and say, hey, help me design this, help me figure this out. Our community, they come in after the fact. They've exhausted all of their own research, all their own, and they're like, do you know what the problem is? Someone told me you could fix it. Within 10 minutes, I'm like, yeah, I see the problem. It's pretty simple problem for someone who does this every day in terms of understanding and seeing what it is. And I wrote down what their loss was. And by November of that year, because I started at the beginning of the year, I was $2.6 million that as an aggregate, these people that had come in to see me within the first 10 minutes of the initial consultation, I was like, yeah, don't do that. That's going to lead to a loss. That's the amount they had lost. The problem is I normally am explaining their loss. Oh yeah, do you understand what the problem is? Yeah, here's your problem. This is exactly what's wrong. Okay, great. How do I fix it? I don't know. Like, what do you mean you don't know? You said you understood the problem. I do understand the problem. Since I never would have done it that way, and none of the professionals I know would have done it that way, you did it in a way that you put it together, which I have to kind of look at and figure it out. And, it's not you created a problem that a professional wouldn't have created. Or my best one is where they write a contract, they go online and they get a contract off of the internet and they start using it in their business, and they're like, how do I get out of it? And I'm like, you don't. You signed this contract, has a whole bunch of stuff in it. Did you know it had this? No. Well, you're now getting sued, or you're going to have to sue this person. It's going to cost you a lot of money. And so I always say good advice doesn't cost you, it pays you. And I have one more quick story. If I can add it in there, Ross, do I have time? One more quick.
You do?
When I was 23 years old, I did pretty well early out of school. I think that year I'd made 123 grand. And I owed, after I'd paid into the IRS all year long, I think I owed like $21,000 after paying all year long, and I'm like, geez, how's this? I go home to my parents' house. My dad happens to have his taxes out. They happen to be sitting in the library of their home. And I glance at it. I get mad. I go in the kitchen. He's in there making a sandwich so he can go watch the football game on TV. I storm in the kitchen. I said, Dad. He looks at me because I'm speaking in a tone that I don't normally speak. We're old South. He's like, what's going on there? I said, how is it that you made 11 times more money than I made and you pay less in taxes? And he's just making his sandwich. He's kind of looking at me out of the corner of his eye. He goes, who's your accountant? And I go, I have a degree in finance and accounting from the Hampton University. I'm my own accountant, and I kind of button up my shirt, get all big. He just looks at me, cuts his sandwich in half, says, I have a better accountant, and walks out of the room and goes in the library to watch football. So I follow him in there a few minutes later, just thinking about it. I said, Dad, what do you mean? He goes, Jason, you're making too much money to be doing your own accounting. Like, you may have a degree in finance and accounting, but taxes, you want doing your taxes, you need someone who does it every day and twice on Sunday. And you need to get a referral from someone who makes as much money as you make or more. You don't need to get a referral from someone who's going to, is it the little ones in the strip mall, like H&R
or something
yeah,
like that.
whatever. Nothing wrong with those. He said, that's not who you need to be going to. Go get a referral to an accountant who can handle your business. I did that. The guy I hired I ended up owing $548. He used to train all the IRS auditors for over a decade, and had his own practice. And so expertise matters. You don't go and get a cheap surgeon. You don't go get a cheap dentist. If you get a cheap lawyer and you're on the hook for a major thing, you're probably going to go to jail when you get a cheap lawyer. So we have to start spending the money on professional advice because it's only going to help us.
Absolutely. And just a caveat to that. So a lot of people think, oh, I pay for professional advice, I'm automatically going to be successful. It still doesn't work that way, right? And I always tell people, and some of the people I'm talking to are the crowds that I hang out, that failure is a part of the process. Sometimes, like you said, the example you just gave, if you wouldn't have known to go hire a tax professional if you didn't suffer that failure as far as paying all this money in taxes, right? So, and again, you had a degree, you were expert, so on and so forth. So I don't want people to say, okay, well, I pay for this professional advice, I'm going to automatically be successful. And then if I'm not, I'm going to go back and blame this person that I paid to help me, right?
That is true. So failure is a part, 98% of startups fail. So why not put yourself, and those are ones that could be well planned. I have a degree in finance and accounting. Come tax time, I have an accountant that does my taxes. Think about that. I have a law degree. I teach at law school. I have lawyers that I hire to do to do certain things. And that's my skill set. The reason being is going to court may not be my skill set. Certain areas of the law may not be my skill set. It may not also be something I want to do. There's an administrative side to it, knowing the people in the system, things like that, staying up to date on all the changes. That's not what I do. And so there's nothing wrong with getting help. Actually, the biggest problem is when you don't get help, because I guarantee you, once you become successful, these things are going to bubble up. They just are. All those contracts you signed early on are going to bubble up. And then the other thing is your own personal knowledge. If you're humble in the way you approach learning, then you recognize you're not the smartest person in the room. And if you are, you're in the wrong rooms. You got it. No matter how good you are in one area of business, there's another area of business that you probably suck in. And that's not just you, that's everyone. Just like when I ask you, I want everybody to be clear. Ross is a great resource. I knew when I asked the question, that wasn't your specialty, that you had never done products sales. So I knew you didn't know the answer, but that doesn't mean you're not a great businessman. You're not a great advisor. You're not a great source for people to talk to. It just means that's not your area. And so nowadays you have to get granular and specific with what you're offering. The days of being a generalist are kind of over.
Absolutely. Even back in the day, you were a generalist. Most times you weren't going to be very successful. I've learned over the years, ups and downs, bump my head. And some of these things I already knew, but I still bump my head, that the business is a team sport, which basically means you have to have a team. You have to have a financial advisor, you have a tax person like Jason, and again, in our community, everybody wants to be the chief. I'm the boss. I'm the big man. I'm the flashy guy. And it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I know you experience that a lot in business.
Yeah. We we have some things as a community to learn. Other communities, it's more collaborative. Other communities, it's more professional. And so we're getting there. I'll put it that way. We're getting there. That being said, I think part of it is, people want to feel good. And I always tell people, business isn't something you always feel good at.
Sure.
Like, even when you have a successful business, you still aren't always feeling good about it.
Nope.
They also don't want to be told no. They feel like, oh, it's rejection. If you're concerned about rejection, business is the absolute worst field to go into, because you're guaranteed to get rejection if you're doing something new. And if you don't, that means you're not selling a whole lot, or you're not making a lot of money if you're not getting any rejection. Because it's just a part and parcel of the process. So if you don't want rejection, you should probably go work for the government or something. people think it's an easier job. I'm gonna go work for myself. It'll be easy. The old joke is entrepreneurship is the only job you trade a 40-hour per week job for an 80 to 100-hour per week job that you don't get paid for.
Yep.
So that's one thing. I do have one what do you call it? Something that you hate. What do they call it? Like a little thing that just bugs the crap out of me. Please
Nope.
stop running around and calling yourself an entrepreneur. Because I teach the course in entrepreneurship, because I run a business advisory class, because I specialize in it and I speak at conferences and I've been doing this 30 years, people they may not know that. So when I meet them, I remember one place I was at, 9 people told me they were an entrepreneur. Of those, and so my thing is, oh, what's your business? What do you need to know that for? Maybe I can do business with you. You know, their defense, what they were is they were unemployed. What they were was underemployed. What they were is, you know, they were thinking about doing something. As we say down south, we fitting to do something. Everyone I know who's an actual entrepreneur, in 30 years, I've never heard them refer to themselves as an entrepreneur, myself included, you included. Everyone else says, hey, I own a business that does, I own a plumbing company and we have 200, you know, trucks that do plumbing in the greater Atlanta area. Hey, I'm a developer and we build private neighborhoods, you know, private single family homes and condos. And we have 1,000 units that we're building over on, you know, whatever, Northwest Houston. The list goes on. I have a tech company, an IT company, and we do X, Y, and Z. I've never heard a guy who's an actual entrepreneur refer to himself as an entrepreneur. I've never heard a successful guy who's a founder refer to himself as a founder. Whenever I hear these terms, and for people who've been in it, when we hear it, we're like, ooh, that means you don't have a business. If you're talking about, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an entrepreneur, doesn't mean you have a business probably. That's what you're communicating to people. So when you put founder on your business card, when you put entrepreneur and you lead with that, all you're doing is telling the person that you're talking to that you probably don't have a business. If someone says, what do you do? And you say, I'm an entrepreneur, you've wasted an opportunity to actually connect with the person and sell them on something. Say, hey, what do you do? You know what? I'm Ross. We got Ross Development and we're building 38 plots over in Southeast Houston. And we also have another development we're building a 50,000 square foot commercial building in Northwest Houston and blah, blah, blah. We're a developer. You know, that's what's going to help your business is introducing it based on what you actually do.
Okay.
And if you aren't doing anything, then you should just kind of say, hey, I'm looking at an opportunity to do X.
Yep. And it's almost like a status thing. I'm a business owner or entrepreneur. And we throw that term out there all the time to make ourselves look big. I've also learned, and I think we've talked about this, and probably some of this I learned from you, is that a lot of successful business owners won't even tell you they're the owner. Why? Because then you're putting a target on yourself.
Yep.
You know,
I
all this and that. It's a target.
Right. If I tell you that I'm a founder and I'm the head honcho, I'm the owner, then I can never renegotiate a contract. So if I walk in and see you and my card says founder, owner, and you know, oh, okay, I'm dealing with the owner. I can't make a mistake. I can't go back and renegotiate. But if I send in someone else who's a manager or something lower and they make a mistake, then they go back and they're like, oh, we made a mistake. And I was talking to my boss, I was talking to the owner. He's like, we can't do that for that price. And now we can go renegotiate it. So I'll even give myself my first company, I was 20 years old. I didn't even name it. I named it McCormick Enterprises. And I was dealing with this guy who's in his mid-50s. He was an insurance guy. And I was going and asking these very technical questions, not about normal insurance, but by a particular type of high-level business insurance and liability insurance. And he said, well, just have the owner give me a call. And he said, yeah. I said, well, he asked me to stop by. And I just kept stopping by. And he's like, when am I going to meet the owner? And I'm like, well, he's busy doing this with the project. He asked me to come in. And then one day he just looked at me after our like ninth meeting. He said, you're the owner, aren't you? I said, what makes you say that? He goes, you seem to know everything about it. You know a lot more than a 19-year-old college kid should know. And you're always the one who sent. I'm like, yeah, I'm the owner. He goes, why'd you name it McCormick Enterprises? I said, now we were down south in Virginia. I said, what do you envision when you hear the word McCormick Enterprises? Who do you think would own it? He goes, I don't know, 45-year-old Irish guy with like freckles and red hair. Like, right, you're not thinking of a 19-year-old black kid. He goes, yeah, you're right. He goes, that's brilliant. Any questions you have, any help you need, let me know, because that's brilliant. I've never put my name like, hey, Jason Enterprises, Jason Company, Fenwick this, on any of the companies I've ever owned. And I've never introduced myself as president, founder. I was always some mid-level, guy in terms of what's the word I'm looking for? Title, region, district. I wasn't even district man. I was like supervisor. Like I wasn't even anything major at another company. And the reason being is because that has saved, people, unfortunately, I'm older, so I'm 56. At the time I came up, we weren't where we were in terms of the Black community and the race relations in America. I would argue we're going backwards now, but there was easy reason to believe that if you thought this was a Black-owned company, you wouldn't be doing business with it.
Absolutely.
Right. So that was then, and I believe that that's probably going to be coming back, pretty soon.
Yep.
But so that was the first part of it. I didn't run. I figured the only people that need to know I was, that it was Black-owned business was my accountant and the banker when I deposited the money. Otherwise, at the time, I didn't see a benefit in advertising that. Now, some people may say, hey, times have changed and this and that. If they have, I think things are going backwards to the way it used to be.
I agree.
Yeah. So you putting your face out there, I remember one time in particular, they thought that, hey, you're a big company and it worked to you're a big company. Somewhere they were like, we're not going to pay you. They were slowing payment because they didn't have enough money to pay everyone. And I said, oh my gosh. I said, it was right before Christmas. I remember this, at the beginning of December, and they were 3 months or something past an invoice. And I called them and they were telling me this. And they're like, well, don't worry, it won't affect you. And I'm like, no, it does. Like, what do you mean? I said, well, because I'm the person in charge of this account, if you don't pay, I got credit for it when you guys made the order. But if you don't pay, then they're going to take that out of my paycheck. And they were like, what? Oh, no, we can't have that. And then they paid it the next day. But if I had been the owner, I know people who've been in that situation where they were the owner and that was it. I know a guy, he lost $1 million contract because he showed up to the contract. I forgot what type of car it was, but it was a very expensive luxury car that he made the mistake of driving to one of his main customers. And they saw that car pull up and park and him get out of it. And the next week they canceled the contract. And to this day, they've never said why. He assumes, based on the things he kind of heard through the grapevine, that it was like, oh, we must have been paying you too much if you can afford that car. The next week, once he heard that, he went out, got rid of that car, and bought a Chevy. It was like a generic Chevy that pretty much any salesperson would have if they were a professional salesperson. I forgot, but I'm gonna say a Chevy Impala or something like that, with nothing on it, like just your basic Chevy Impala. He went in and asked the dealer, "What's the car that the most, salespeople or account managers or whatever for the companies, what do they buy?" They said this here Chevy with didn't even have leather in it. It had like velour seats or something, and he bought that car and he drove that car ever since. And so, you know, we like to show up and floss. That doesn't get us paid.
A lot of nuggets in what you just said right there that people
We could do a whole show on that. I've seen a whole, you know, I tell the ladies, you know, when you go in, I see it a lot nowadays. Back in the days, you know, we didn't see it as much. Nowadays, I see it a lot with the ladies where they come in with the extremely expensive purse, the nails, the hair, everything is, you know, all the designer stuff. And they're asking for money. They're asking for someone to fund them. And it's like, yeah, what you don't, you're kind of transmitting that you spend money on a lot of stuff that doesn't matter to the average businessman or investor. I've had employees, they've come up to me, had two, four, six, $800,000 tennis shoes.
Hmm.
And I was literally buying my tennis shoes at pay less, not figuratively, but literally buying my shoes there. Not because I couldn't afford it, just that's where I say, hey, why am I going to waste money on? I had one employee once come up to me and say, how come my car is better than your car? And I looked at him and I looked at his car and I looked at mine and I was like, I don't know. You don't care? No, why would I care? He's like, shouldn't that bother you? I'm like, it should actually bother you that you have a nicer car than the guy who owns the company.
Yeah, I get that a lot with real estate. Well, why don't you have the big house on the hill and all that type of stuff? You're in real estate. And I just shake my head, you don't get it. You know, and just keep moving.
Right.
You know what I mean?
The average millionaire next door, we could do a whole show on that. In fact, I'm gonna recommend
Yes.
they call it The Millionaire Next Door. So 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, I still have the book on my shelf. I just got to remember the guy's my other shelf, but they did a study on I forgot 10,000 or 20,000 millionaires in America just to figure out what the deal was. They discovered that everybody they thought were millionaires weren't. They were just high income earners. That's what they designated them, like the surgeon, the lawyer, etc. They made good money, 300, $700,000, but they spent all their money. What they found is the average millionaire, no one would believe the statistics. You would never know the guy's a millionaire. He owns his own business. He is married to the same woman for 20 some odd years. He drives a truck or a car that's American made, that's over 9 years old. You know, he's been driving it, has several 100,000 miles on it. Kids go to public school. He doesn't vacation at Vail, you know, Vail or Aspen, Colorado, or lives a simple life. Lives in the first house he bought, and it isn't a mansion, and he just has a whole bunch of cash and a whole bunch of assets. And this is repeated, repeated, repeated. And so there's a way that they flow. And that's the part in our community that we don't understand, that what we associate with wealth, what we associate with being a millionaire, that person's probably not a millionaire. The one who actually is the one you're probably overlooking. So we could do a whole show on that, and I could bring types of things for that one. Let me know when you want to do that one.
Okay, we will do that. And I got
That
that.
one might need to be the next one because it'll prepare. It's a good setup. Actually, if we'd done that first, it would be a good setup. The reason I'm being is because once you understand the mindset of the people that you're going to be dealing with to become successful, then it's easier to navigate and speak their language.
And we'll back that up. We'll do that. I mean, I think that's a great suggestion. I have the book on my shelf too, and there's so many nuggets in that you know, nowadays with social media and everything, everybody's flossing. I got this car, I got this purse, I got this. You know, most times it's rented, or you know, you bought it on credit, so on and so forth. But people that are wealthy can see that you have nothing. That's not impressive to me, that you drive a big car and so on and so forth. Because most times you're car poor, or your house poor, so on and so forth. And that's a mindset, like you said, we need to get out of in our community, because you may be faking the poor cat next to you, but you're not going to fool anybody else.
The wealthy people, wealth whispers, I always say. they're not trying to prove to anyone they're wealthy. People already know it. Wealth looks between the cracks. They're quiet. You meet someone who's wealthy and you're like, why are they dressed like a bummer? They're like, what do you need me to, what do you need? What do you need me to do so that you can feel comfortable with my wealth?
Right.
You're not their target demographic,
Yeah.
to impress. When you sometimes I'll jokingly say, when you get to a certain place in life, certain things just don't matter anymore. It's like, oh, you have a new car. Like, okay, it's a car. It isn't a big deal. Oh, it's a house. Okay, it isn't a big deal. There are other things that are more important. And then we can talk about, how the wealth isolate, what their habits are, and what people always want to rub shoulders with wealthy people. The problem is they don't speak their language and they don't understand their values and mores. I did a great, I'm setting this one up perfectly. I did a seminar for 100 Black men that they were their mentorship program on the five factors, 5 indicators of wealth. Like there are 5 things that if you do these 5 things, you statistically have a greater chance of being wealthier or being wealthy. The problem is that if I list the top 5 things that our community doesn't do, would you like to know what they are? I'll give you a hint.
I know, but you can.
It's these 5 things. So I start out by saying, hey, you want to guess what's on this list? And people guess and they're like 99%, 95% of the time they're guessing wrong. They're guessing good things, but they're not the 5 things that an economist looks at. And then when I list it and I say, here are the 5 things, and then I say, now we want to guess that the 5 things our community doesn't do, and you want to do it in order of the 5 major things they don't do. It's the exact same list. And to prove the point, what I do is I take 2 people in the audience and I line them up and I say, hey, when I list something, if this applies to you, take a step forward. And so I'm picking someone that I know has all these points and also quietly wealthy. And so I say the first one, and then the person takes a step forward, a giant step. I say, take like a 3-foot step. And then they kind of look back at the person. It's like, see, you guys are like this. Then I list the second one. Then now you're like this. There's a gap. Then I list the third one. There's a gap. Fourth one, fifth one. By the time I list the 5th one, he's taken 3-foot steps. He's way out ahead. And that's our community. We wonder, like, well, why are we so far behind? Well, it isn't slavery. I mean, that you could attribute some of it to that, but that was 150 years ago. It really isn't slavery, because if we were an economy, just Black people in America, we would be the 8th largest economy in the entire world. So it isn't that we're not earning the money, it's that we're not keeping or investing the money. But there's certain things that I break down from a social economic standpoint that the economists look at, and I will save those things. And that's my teaser for whenever we do that particular show, which I would recommend being the next one.
Next month, definitely, for sure. And like we started off, so the house that Ross built, it basically, I brought this podcast together to all the people that contributed to the small success that I've had, that I'm still working towards. That's why I keep these people in my corner, so I can grow to where I think I should be, or where I want to be. So that's the whole basis of this podcast. And as you see what Jason's talking about, we have a passion to help our community. Like I said, it's not a lot of things that we're not. They want to say we're not smart, we're not this, we're not that. It's really a lack of education or miseducation, even in your college degrees and so on and so forth. They're not necessarily educating us to build wealth.
No, much of their wealth is dependent on our spending our money. See, I'm gonna get in all types of trouble now, but what the heck, I'm already here. And the average, I'll just throw a couple things out, and then you can tell me to shut up. The average American family, that includes everybody, Black, white, Martians. If they're in America, this is it. makes just over like $42,788 for a family of four. Family of four. You got that? That's before taxes. So what does that mean after taxes? Now we're down to roughly, that level, you're down to probably, 34,000. But let's be generous and just say 36 because it's even. That's $3,000 a month. That's total. You want to know what now that's average. That's that includes everybody. You want to know what the average Black woman spends on her hair per year?
You're gonna get yourself in trouble, bro.
Nails. This is average.
Yeah, I hear you.
You're coming up on $2,600 when you add hair, nails, makeup per year. That's just average. The problem with that is that's roughly 1 month's pay for a family of four, and it's like one of the top expenses. The second problem is it's buying stuff that's outside of the community. But I don't want to just isolate Black women. Do you know people spend on liquor? See, I don't drink. I never drank. I never did drugs. I've never been high or drunk. They're spending more than a month's worth of pay on liquor. So between hair and liquor, we got 2.5 months gone. We haven't even, that's why our kids don't have braces.
Right.
That's why they're on corners with buckets saying, hey, we're going to the state championship. Will you donate? And they're selling candy and stuff like that, or asking. Other communities don't do that. And so we have the money, we're just spending it in places and ways that doesn't happen. Average single Black man in America, single, makes $53,000. Average single Black woman makes $50,000. Problem is historically, the $50,000 Black woman would marry the $53,000 Black man, and they would make $103,000, which is 2.5 times what the average family of four makes. You got a good start right there. The problem is people aren't getting married, and the people who are making 50 don't want the guy who's making 53. They want the guy who's making 250. Well, there's a problem there. There aren't that many of those guys. And that guy has a lot of people that want him. And you're ignoring the guy who's sitting right next to you that's making 53 that y'all could actually build something with. So there are a lot of things that are affecting our community that have long-term community and institutional effects on what we're doing. And we got to talk about it and reverse it.
Got to open it for conversation. And I don't necessarily say that it would be the wrong terminology to say it's not our fault, because we can educate ourselves, but we have to understand that it's a part of the system. It's part of the programming for us to be the biggest consumer, us to not to hold wealth, us, all these things that we kind of buy into, or we associate our, like, pet peeve for me now, our culture. They say it's part of the culture. Whose culture?
Right. Who created this?
Who came up with this?
Right. This wasn't our historic culture. So when I was speaking at a conference, and about the 7th time someone said this, I stopped, and what they said is, well, I come from this type of background, and my mother didn't tell me this, or no one showed me this, and blah, blah, blah. About the 7th time someone said that, I said, hey, let me ask you a question. Did your mother tell you about Bali? No? Oh, okay. Did your mother tell you about Chanel purses? Or did they tell you about red bottom shoes? Did your mother spend $75 every other week on her nails getting done? No. Like, how'd you learn about red bottom shoes? How'd you learn about Bali and Thailand? You seem to have figured that out. You seem to be able to go to the other side of the world, or at least dream about it or understand it. No other generation in our community has gone to Bali and Thailand.
Nope.
How'd you learn about it? If your parents didn't teach, oh, I looked it up myself. Oh, so you're capable of learning and teaching independently. The issue is when we don't do right, rather than be accountable for our decisions, we want to go back to slavery. Now, I'm not saying slavery didn't have an impact. So for anybody out there that wants to send this over to Fox News or wherever and say, oh, let's get this guy on, he's going to give us off the hook. No, I'm not that dude. What I'm saying is, um, every indicator in our community as it relates to business or wealth is gone backwards. In 1960s, we owned more homes. More people were married in 1965 in our community than today. 85%. We were literally the highest demographic of marriage in America, higher than the white community, higher than the Asian community. We were at 85%. Now we're at 23%. We owned more homes 100 years ago. It's 1924, 1944, 1964. In our community, we owned more homes, not as a percentage, but as an actual number of homes than today we own. That's concerning. Single parenting 100 years ago was negligible. 70 years ago, negligible. 50 years ago, negligible. Under 13, under 10, single digit. Like the spike year was like 13% or something. And they were like, what the heck happened here? And I think it was like the year after World War II, or the GIs came home. And then the next year it went down because they came home, then they got married. You know what I mean? Like it was like, oh, they might have done some things as we all might do when we're young. And then they got married. But that year when they did the census or whatever, they hadn't counted. We're projected that 78% of our children born today will be single parent households. Statistics are mofo. You can't outrun statistics because they're going to tell you exactly what's going on in most situations.
Like Jay-Z, I always say, like Jay-Z was saying, numbers lie. I mean, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie.
Numbers don't lie. People lie. Numbers don't lie. And one of the reasons, I mean, we're getting way off track, and you can edit all this stuff off.
We can talk all day.
One more thing. When I was a kid, Mercury Morris, first time I heard the term cocaine was Mercury Morris, which was a football player for the Miami Dolphins. I was a Miami Dolphin fan. They had a perfect year. They went 13-0, 14-0, won the Super Bowl, undefeated. Mercury Morris was one of the players. And he went down for buying and selling cocaine. And it was national news. That's the first time I ever heard the word. But what I began to notice was that whenever there was a successful black man, there were 4 or 5 things they threw at him to make him unsuccessful. The first thing, after they threw money at him, they then threw drugs at him. They then threw alcohol at him. If alcohol didn't work, then they threw free drugs at him. And if that didn't work, then they threw women at him. I'm not talking about, saintly women like your mother, grandmother, the one that's going to help you build a business and keep your wealth. When all that didn't work, then they multiplied everything else by 5 or 10. So they gave them more money, more access to drugs, more access to women, more access to all these different things. And so I remember making a list when I was 5 and saying, or not 5, I'm sorry, 15 or so, and saying, okay, well, this is how they're going to get you. Come after me. So I've never been drunk or high. Why? Because the first thing on the list is alcohol. So since I don't like the taste of it, and I never tasted it at that point, we just don't need to do it. Drugs, never did it. Why? Because this is the second thing they threw at it. Not managing the money. That now precluded me from selling the drugs or taking the drugs. I did not scratch off women, but let's just say we'll just edit that part out.
The active on that one, right? Yeah.
Edit that part out. But the point is, there is a strategy afoot to keep our community. There's some there. It is built into the economy to keep us where we're at.
Absolutely.
And the way we have to get out from under that is by just quietly doing the things that every other community does to keep themselves out of poverty. And so the next one, stay tuned. I'll be doing the 5 indicators of wealth. That can be the name of the podcast, the 5 indicators of wealth.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. Like you guys see here that, and this is what we like to do. We're going to give you information, but we just like to talk. We're opening stuff up for discussion that we need to do in our community, and, doesn't have to be an expert. We're not going to speak over your head in a lot of instances. We're going to get down to the grassroots, and we're going to talk about things, and we're going to educate you on how you can make it better.
Yeah. And if you want to stay and if you want to get better, we're here to talk about how to get better. If you want to give 1,000 excuses for dysfunction, hey, I'm at an age where I'm like, okay, well, good luck with that. Hey, I'm not gonna go out of my way to argue with someone over this. If it's working, if it's not working for you, I don't know why you'd want to continue doing it. But every situation that's ever occurred, I was born poor, I was born a single mother, this, that, my dad did what. I can point to 100 situations that are exactly that thing where the person ended up being a millionaire.
Absolutely.
But what they have to do is get rid of that mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll end it on that. That's a great nugget right there. And next month, like I said, tune in and we'll have them on again, and we'll talk about, we'll do a precursor to what we're talking about here.
That'll work, sir. I appreciate you inviting me on. If you guys need to contact me, you said they put it at the bottom, but
say it again.
202-239-2368, Windsor, Wyeth and Ward, J Fenwick at Windsor Wyeth, windsorwyeth.com. We are happy to help you out with your businesses, any type of business that you're starting. That's one of my specialties. If you're selling a business, you already have a family-owned business, we're happy to help you with that. If you need someone to come speak at one of your conferences, let me know.
Absolutely. Wealth of knowledge. We appreciate you coming on, brother. And see you next time. Appreciate you.
You have a great one.
You too.